So, like I said before in a previous video where I talked about Beledros Witherbloom, I don't think that too many people build decks around the Elder Dragons from the Strixhaven Academy. I don't know why, since people seem to really favor the Perunes of Ravnica. Maybe it's just that the flavor wasn't there for some of those people. But for me, I really wanted to make a video series with each and every one of the Strixhaven Elder Dragon commanders. So, let's go ahead and talk about the next one today, the Boros commander Velomachus Lorehold, or Velomachus Lorehold, or Voluptuous Lorehold. I don't know. It's a big Boros dragon, and it does spell slingy things. Let's talk about it. Velomachus Lorehold is a Boros and 5 Behemoth 5/5 Flying Vigilant Haste Elder Dragon Commander, and that would be enough in a different era of Magic, but we live in the modern times, so he also has to let you look at the top 7 cards of your library and cast any instant or sorcery from among them with mana value less than or equal to its power, and just cast it automatically for free whenever you do this. Hopefully you can see that there's a couple of paths we could walk down here. The degenerate path is infinite extra combats by putting a non-deterministic amount of extra combat spells in the deck, so Lorehold could just swing once and then that would be it, that would be game. Everybody would die instantly due to extra combats burning their faces off. But we are not going to go down that route. We're going to try to have a more interesting route. There will be ways to get extra damage and extra combats onto Lorehold, but I want to play this as a true blue spell slinger strategy. So as far as extra damage is concerned and extra combats, we've only got 4 cards that do either of these things. The Isengard Unleashed card lets our commander have non-preventable damage, and whenever it would deal damage, it deals triple damage instead. We also get flashback on this for later turns. Then we have the Legion Leadership card, which will give our commander double strike if we want. Overpowering Attack will give our commander an additional combat phase, and of course Response Resurgence will do the same thing, but we could also use it to blow up a blocking creature if need be. That's it for the boring cards of the deck. Let's talk about some of the more interesting ones, like, say, Itali Primal Storm, who's effectively another version of our commander's effect, allowing us to get free spells off the top of everybody's library. And a Geometric Nexus, which says whenever a player casts an instant sorcery spell, we put a number of charge counters on the Nexus equal to that spell's mana value. Since we will be casting many of them, and they will always be free, the Nexus is going to get lots of charge counters. We can then remove all charge counters from the Nexus to make a 0/0 green and blue fractal token with 1/1 counters equal to the charge counters removed this way, giving us an alternate win con of one big chunky boy. We'll also add in a few ways to copy spells so that we can copy any funny cards that happen with our commander's ability. Twinferno allows us to say whenever we next cast an instant or sorcery spell, we can copy the spell, or we can give a creature we control double strike until end of turn. Double Vision allows us to copy our first instant or sorcery spell cast any turn. Dualcaster Mage copies any instant or sorcery on the stack, and Arcane Bombardment says a lot of words. Whenever we cast our first instant or sorcery spell each turn, we get to remove a random one from the graveyard and put it under the bombardment. Then we can cast the cards that are under bombardment at any point as long as we are in the middle of casting another instant or sorcery spell. This is basically a game-winning card in its own right. It is way too busted, way too broken, and anytime you see this on a board from anybody who's playing Commander, remove the card immediately, kill it, burn it with fire. You cannot survive a game where this is on the board. We'll also add in some recursion pieces to get back important pieces of the deck. Pinnacle Monk allows us to get any instant or sorcery we've already cast from our graveyard back into our hand. Invoke Calamity lets us cast up to 2 instants and sorceries from our graveyard, as long as their mana values equal 6 or less combined. The Campus Renovation spell lets us put an artifact or enchantment card from our graveyard onto the battlefield and then gives us an impulse draw effect. Reconstruct History lets us put an artifact, enchantment, target instant sorcery card and a planeswalker card from our graveyard into our hand. Quintorius Loremaster himself, one of the students of the Lorehold Academy, says at the beginning of our end step, exile a non-creature non-land card from our graveyard and make a 3/2 red-white spirit token in exchange. We can then sacrifice a spirit to choose any card exiled with Quintorius and cast that card without paying its mana cost. Invoke Justice allows us to return any permanent card from our graveyard to the battlefield, giving it 4 1/1 counters if it is in fact a creature or a vehicle. Mizzix's Mastery allows us to exile a card from our graveyard and cast that spell for free, or we can overload it for 8, casting every spell in our graveyard for free. Backdraft Hellkite allows us to have all of our instants and sorceries gain flashback as long as it has attacked this turn, and the Radiant Scroll Wielder gives all of our instants and sorceries lifelink, and at the beginning of our upkeep, we can exile any instant or sorcery card from our graveyard and cast it this turn, and then exile it afterwards. While we don't have a lot of burn spells to benefit from the lifelinking ability, we do have plenty of spells that like being cast multiple times. This is a very threatening and expensive commander, so we are going to run a few ways to protect it as well. One of which being Lorehold Command. We can use this to give any creature 1/0 and indestructible until end of turn. We can also use it to burn a target and gain 3 life. We can also use it to sacrifice a permanent, draw 2 cards. There's a lot of things this card can do, and we get to choose 2 of those at any point, like any good command card. Then we have Swiftfoot Boots and Champion's Helm to give our commander some added hexproof ability. All in all, we should have plenty of fun spells to cast, but the meat of this deck is not going to be in the stuff that interacts directly with Lorehold, but it's going to be with the other packages of the deck that Lorehold can cast. So let's go ahead and start with the Draw package. We are going to be running a 9-card draw package, trying to lean heavily into cards that can create treasures for us so that we can get Lorehold out just a little bit easier. Let's begin with Thrilling Discovery, letting us gain 2 life, discard 2 cards, and draw 3 cards. Poetic Charge allows us to discard our hand and then draw 4 cards, and for every card discarded this way, a creature gets 1/0 until end of turn. We can use this in tandem with our commander to get big damage. Inspired Tinkering exiles the top 3 cards of our library so we can cast them until the end of turn, or end of next turn, and we make 3 treasure tokens for the effort. We can also make treasure tokens with Big Score and Unexpected Windfall and Pirate's Pillage and Seize the Spoils. All of these allow us to discard a card to draw 2 cards and generate treasures for doing so. Imposing Grandeur says each player may discard their hand and draw cards equal to the greatest mana value of a commander they own, meaning players with low value commanders are now punished by this card, whereas we with a 7 mana commander will always be able to draw 7 cards when we cast this. Then we have Into the Time Vortex, which allows us to cascade when we cast it, getting a different spell for free from our deck, and it has Rebound, so we'll get that ability again the following turn. Now, I know you may be thinking that that's mostly looting and not a lot of actual draw, but we have a commander that casts spells for free from the top of our deck. You will be fine. Trust me. Let's talk about stopping our opponents from winning games so that you don't think about how hard it's going to be for you to win the game. It will be very easy, trust me. We are running a 10-card removal and interaction suite. And while that may seem low for me, you'll see why it's not here in a minute. But for each of these cards, let's go over what they do. Abrade gets rid of creatures and artifacts, Bovine Intervention gets rid of artifacts and creatures and gives our opponent a lovely 2/2 ox thing. It's got horns. Then we have Lightning Helix, dealing 3 damage to any target and letting us gain 3 life. Rip Apart, which lets us deal 3 damage to a creature, or we can use it to blow up an artifact or an enchantment. Anzarag's Rampage, which destroys all the artifacts we don't control and then gives us an extra ability afterwards, where we can then exile the top cards of our library until we hit the amount of artifacts we've thrown away, and then get a creature card from among them onto the battlefield with haste. This secondary ability won't be used that much as our deck only contains 10 creatures. Then we have Stroke of Midnight, letting us blow up any non-land permanent. Chaos Warp, letting us get rid of any permanent in exchange for gambling. Then we have Generous Gift to blow up any permanent at all, giving our opponent a 3/3 elephant token. Olarian's Searing Light, saying each opponent exiles a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls. And then, if we have 2 or more instant or sorceries in our graveyard, this will then deal damage to every opponent equal to the power of the creatures they exiled. Then we have Untimely Malfunction, which can blow up an artifact or redirect a target of a spell or ability's single target to anything else we want. And why is that thing currently $2? Why is this uncommon creeping up in price while Stroke of Midnight's creeping down in price? This got reprinted and this got printed in back-to-back sets. I guess we need Untimely Malfunction and Commander precons now. But here is the reason we are only running 10 removal and interaction pieces. We can get away with that because we are running a grand total of 8 board wipes. That's right, 8 board wipes. Let's talk about each of these. Volcanic Torrent has Cascade and then deals X damage to every creature and planeswalker your opponent controls, where X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. Promise of Loyalty makes everybody sacrifice all of their creatures except one, and then they can't attack you but the one they keep. Single Combat blows up every creature except one. Waltz of Rage makes one creature deal damage to equal to its power to each other creature. And until the end of turn, whenever a creature you control dies, exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card until the end of your next turn. Tragic Arrogance says for each player, choose from among them permanents they control of an artifact, enchantment, creature, planeswalker, etc., and then every player sacrifices all other non-land permanents they control. We'll keep our commander, and you can keep, I don't know, Alana War Elf or something. Then we have Divine Reckoning, making each player choose a creature they control and blow up every other creature they control besides that one. Urza's Ruinous Blast blows up, exiles all non-land permanents that are not legendary, and What Must Be Done destroys all artifacts and creatures, and has the ability to return a historic permanent from our graveyard to the battlefield instead, if we so choose. I hope you can see the theme with these is that each of these either has the ability to get our commander on the board or blows up everything except our commander while on the board, meaning that we will always have access to Lorehold and our opponent has access to Tears. But while we do have lots of treasure creation in our draw package, we need a dedicated ramp package to get this 7-mana commander online. So let's talk about that. We are running a beefy 15-card ramp package to try to get this commander online as soon as possible. We have a Burnished Heart, which can sacrifice itself to get a 2 basic lands from the deck onto the battlefield, a Wayfarer's Bauble that can sacrifice itself to get 1 basic land from the deck onto the battlefield, Charitable Levy, which sacrifices itself to draw us a card and gets a Plains onto the battlefield, Stone Speaker Crystal, which is a 2-mana rock that can sacrifice itself to draw us a card and get rid of people's graveyards, Hedron Archives, a 2-mana rock that can also sacrifice itself to draw us cards if we need. Command Sphere's a 1-mana rock that can sacrifice itself to let us draw a card. Hopefully you're seeing a theme here. Keeper of the Accord says at the beginning of every opponent's end step, if they have more creatures than us, we make a white soldier, but if they got more lands than us, then we get a basic Plains from our deck onto the battlefield. Mind Stone's a 2-mana rock that can sacrifice itself to let us draw cards. Solemn Simulacrum is a wonderful boy who deserves everything we've ever done to it. Comes onto the battlefield, gets us a basic land, and if it dies, we draw a card. Worn Powerstone's a 2-mana rock that costs 3 instead of 4, so it comes down really early and does a lot of work. Same with Thran Dynamo at 4 mana for a 3-mana rock. Then we have a Soul Ring because Wizards of the Coast and I just don't get along anymore, and I have to include this in some decks somewhere. Think of it like a toxic relationship. I keep coming back to it. Then there's Boros Signet, Arcane Signet, and Talisman of Conviction. Each of these are the basic 2-mana rocks of the deck, and they do exactly what they say on the print. They give us mana at a reasonable rate. Then for our lands, we are going to run 7 basic plains and 9 basic mountains while running a lot of dual lands. Temple of Triumph to give us access to scrying, Boros Garrison to reuse utility lands, Furycomp Snarl since it can come out of play untapped, same with Exotic Orchard, Clifftop Retreat, Sunscorched Divide, and Command Tower, all of which come into play untapped. Then we have Sacred Peaks, which comes into play tapped, but it is a mountain and a plains, so cards like Charitable Levy can yank it out of the deck. We have Fetching Lands of Myriad Landscape to grab us 2 lands out of the deck, Promising Vein and Shire Terrace, which are effectively the same card. They come down and tap for 1 mana, and then we can pay 1 mana into them in order to get any basic land from our deck onto the battlefield tapped. And then Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, and Escape Tunnel. These are all the same card. Ignore any other text on them, ignore the other artworks. They are all the exact same card. Then we have plenty of utility lands, each with a different purpose. A Sunhome Forestress of the Legion gives our commander double strike. Slayer's Stronghold gives our commander 2-0 and vigilance. Pit of Offerings allows us to get rid of cards in graveyards. Spine Rock Knoll gives us another way to free cast things off the top of the deck as long as we can deal 7 damage in a turn. And Bonder's Enclave gives us a super easy to use draw engine stapled onto a land so long as our commander is on the board. Now the only weird thing about this deck is trying to figure out how to win with it, because it's got a bunch of weirdly non-cohesive pieces all kind of glued together because they are 5 mana costing spells. So let's talk about how to play this thing. The name of the game is going to be Mulligan until you have ramp, and since we've got 3 lands and some ramp, we're going to keep this hand. So we're going to open up our turn, play Terramorphic Expanse, and crack it to go ahead and get a mountain out of the deck. Now that we move into turn 2, we can go ahead and play a command tower, tap 2, and put that Boros Signet on the board. So when we move into turn 3, we may have Mystic's Mastery, but we can't do anything with it. So we're going to pay 1, or play a land, and tap 3 in order to play Keeper of the Accord. Keeper of the Accord is going to allow us to get another Plains out of our deck, assuming one of our opponents is playing green, which they usually are. So at the beginning of an opponent's end step, we're going to assume that one opponent has more lands than us, so our Keeper of the Accord will grab us a Plains. Now that we've moved on to turn 4, we'll go ahead and play a mountain and pay 1, 2, 3, and put Command Sphere out on the board. Now let's assume that one of our opponents plays something really important, so we're going to have to pay 1, 2, 3 to remove it with Stroke of Midnight. I would have liked to drop down Champion's Helm a little faster, but sometimes that's just not in the cards. So we'll move on to turn 5, and we're going to pay 1, 2, 3, and put Champion's Helm out on the board. Now, we're going to assume again that our opponents put something important out on the board, so we're going to have to Generous Gift that card and get rid of it. Now, since we have missed a land drop, on our opponent's turn, our Keeper of the Accord is likely going to be able to get us another Plains out of the deck. This means when we hit turn 5 or turn 6, we'll be able to tap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and get Velomachus Lorehold out on the board, and we'll be able to pay 1 to give him the Champion's Helm. Now he'll be able to swing for 7 and cast anything in our deck with 7 mana or less. So he's going to swing, and we'll be able to look at the top 7 cards of our library and cast one of these instance or sorcery cards. And looking at the top 7, we have a Inspired Tinkering that we could cast, or you know what? I think the correct thing would be Tragic Arrogance. We are going to sacrifice Command Sphere to draw a card, and we are going to get rid of everybody's boards except for a few key cards. For us, we're going to keep Lorehold, and we're going to keep our Champion's Helm, so we will lose our Boros Signet, and all these other cards can go to the bottom of our deck. This sets our opponents back greatly, and since our commander has hexproof on it right now, we're basically in a good spot for the next turn. We draw a Thran Dynamo, which will allow us to get back to where we needed to be mana-wise, but we're not going to do that yet. We're going to swing with the Lorehold commander, and we're going to look at the top 7 cards of our deck and see what is castable here. And unfortunately for our opponents, it looks like the only real option we have is to wipe their boards again with Divine Reckoning. That sucks for them. I'm terribly sorry that they had to go through that twice, but it wasn't our fault we drew it again. We'll pay 4 in order to play Thran Dynamo. And with Thran Dynamo, you know what? Let's go ahead and say we pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll play Campus Renovation, putting 1 artifact or enchantment from our graveyard onto the battlefield, and then allowing us to get Impulse Draw for the following turns. With the Impulse Draw, we actually can play Sunhome and play a Soul Ring, and in the graveyard, it looks like we'll be getting Command Sphere as our card. This means we are ridiculously high on mana, and yeah, no, this is gonna spell doom for somebody here in just a second. So we are going to pay 1, 2, 3, and we're going to use the Sunhome Fortress of the Legion to give our commander double strike. Now our commander will hit for 14, meaning whoever we've been punching with our commander is likely dead as soon as we hit them with our commander now. But let's see what free spell we get off the top. Oh, well, if we had decided to attack somebody who was not about to die, we could just kill them with Isengard Unleashed, and in fact, I think we're going to do that anyway. We'll cast Isengard Unleashed. Now, instead of our commander dealing 14 damage, it will deal triple that. So 7 times 6, our commander will be dealing 42 damage to an opponent, and we have flashback on this, so we'll be doing this to another opponent here in a turn. That is an oopsie doodle for them. I'm terribly sorry they had to deal with us doing that to them, but after all, they deserved it by existing. We'll pay 1, 2, and we'll do Thrilling Discovery, and we'll get rid of Reconstruct History and Escape Tunnel from our hand to draw 3 cards to move into the final turn. Now that we move into the final turn, we'll go ahead and play a land and look at where we're at. We could do something stupid, but let's do a gamble. Let's do a gamble. we'll pay 2 and we'll play Twinferno. Now, whatever next instant or sorcery we cast this turn, we'll be able to cast it twice. So while we could cast our gratuitous our card in the graveyard that gives us triple damage, we could cast Mystic's Mastery to cast everything in our graveyard for free. We're going to go for the fun move. We're just going to swing Velomachus Lorehold at somebody after giving it double strike, and we're going to see what spell we get to cast twice off the top of the deck. Right now, Poetic Charge is looking pretty good. Pirate's Pillage is looking okay. And Overpowering Attack. Oh, that's what we're going to do. We just win the game. With Overpowering Attack, we cast this card and it'll untap our commander, who's not really tapped anyway because it's got Vigilance. Then there will be an additional combat phase after this one, followed by an additional main phase, if it is our main phase. Unfortunately, because we are casting this for free, we won't have that. So instead of the Overpowering Attack, let's instead go for... Discard your hand, draw 4, and for each card this way, creatures you control get 1/0 until end of turn. Oh, we could just use that. But I don't want to do that. I think we'll just do Pirate's Pillage. We'll do Pirate's Pillage, allowing us to discard a single card, to draw 4 cards and generate 4 treasures. I really wish Overpowering Attack would have worked for this area right here, but unfortunately, it's a card that needs to be cast afterwards with our commander's ability. So we'll throw everything to the bottom of the deck, and now we've got a nice fresh clutch of cards and 1,012 ways to kill our opponents in the following turns. Let's drop Hedron Archive on the board, and then we'll use Rip Apart on an opponent's last remaining cards, because we just need to show them who's boss. Not because we need to win any other way. Like, realistically, we can just play a land and then play Mystic's Mastery right here. We've got... what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We have like 17 mana. So we're just going to give our commander double strike, and then we're just going to cast everything in our grave after we cast Waltz of Rage on our commander. Then we do Mystic's Mastery overloaded, allowing us to cast Waltz of Rage and Rip Apart and Pirate's Pillage. And we get to copy one of our cards if we really want. So we'll just copy the Waltz of Rage again with what's in our grave with Twinferno. We also get to reconstruct history from that if we wanted to. Isengard Unleash, our commander's doing triple damage right now. Let's do Divine Reckoning too, because our opponents don't deserve cards. We'll do Tragic Arrogance on top of it. No, we won't. That would be stupid. We're not doing that. We'll do Thrilling Discovery after we do the Pirate's Pillage, so we can get a nice, fresh hand. Generous Gifting, whatever card they have that could have stopped us, and Stroke of Midnighting another one. And is that all we can cast from the grave right now? I think that's everything we can cast from the grave. Oh no, we have Campus Renovation, which will get us Boros Signet back, you know, because we needed more fucking mana, I guess, and it lets us impulse draw 2 more cards. And then the Pirate's Pillage lets us discard this Evolving Wilds to draw 1, 2, and we'll be copying that with the Twinferno, so it'll draw us 2 more cards, and then we'll discard 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, 3. No, not 3. For the Thrilling Discovery, which you can see how this gets out of hand. We've drawn so many cards, we've cast so many cards, and our commander, by the way, has wiped the board 3 times this turn and is currently hitting somebody for a grand total of 42 damage again. So, yeah, that's Velomachus Lorehold, everybody. This commander's absolutely fucking nuts. I don't want to think about what you would do if you added more money into this, but we'll cross that bridge real quick, you know, for the viewers. So I'm not even going to lie to you. I'm definitely copping out for this section of the video. And by copping out, I mean I'm telling you that Relentless Assault is an extra combat spell you can add to the deck that you can cast with the commander off the top of the deck. Savage Beating is an extra combat spell you can add to the deck that you can cast from the top of the deck. Round 2 is an extra combat spell you can add to the deck that you can cast only during the main phase like with the free running card from before, so be careful when you cast it. World at War is an extra combat spell you can play that has Rebound as well. Akroma's Will allows you to give your commander superpowers like Flying and Vigilance that it already has, but Double Strike that it didn't have, and Lifelink that it didn't have, and Indestructible and Protection that it didn't have. You could also run a Lightning Greaves to make it easier to protect your commander. You could run a Rite of the Dragon Caller, a new card from Foundations that says whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we make a 5/5 red dragon creature token, so Spellslinger players have the biggest nucus of all time. Baleflyer Liege allows you to get damage and life gain off of all of your Boros spells, and makes our commander a nice clean 7/7. Boros Charm's another way to protect your commander, Aurelia Warleader gives you even more extra combats, and Strionic Resonator lets you double up on your commander's ability even when you're not doubling up on combats. And finally, Jeska's Will, because it's Jeska's Will. You've already got one lying somewhere in your box because you tried to build a Spellslinger commander and your friends hated you for it. So you've got one somewhere, probably. Just throw it into this deck and then see if your friends will still stay friends with you when you're done. That's it. It's Jeska's Will, everybody. Gives you lots of mana, gives you impulse draw. That's about it. I think that this is one of those commanders that I am happy with how it came out, but this is not a deck I would personally run, as it's not my personal style of deck. I don't like everything is free, and also I'm getting tons of combats, but if you're that kind of player, this commander will speak to you very, very well. And people won't think the commander's that strong because nobody thinks a 7-mana commander they think they'll never see is going to be a problem until it's hitting them in the face with 12 billion free spells. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. And if you're a member of this channel, you'll even get access to these videos early. Every single time they are complete, they will go up on YouTube and you will have early access to them irrespective of when they are actually scheduled to come out. That said, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me. And as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Agamotto, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fire Shard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.